Hello and welcome to episode number 6. In this one we're going to build Tamiya's brand new Hotchkiss H39 light tank. So I figured must be about time to start building some armour in this channel, hey? So Tamiya's H39, brand new kit. I've got to say I'm a complete Tamiya fanboy. Even a subject that maybe not always super keen on, I'll probably build it if Tamiya releases it. The good thing is this one can actually be built as a German one, so I'm going to do that. But let's quickly unbag it. I just love the feel of Tamiya plastic. I know that's kind of ridiculous, but Tamiya plastic just has a certain feel to it. It feels like quality. There's a beautiful cast texture on this kit as well, which is really nice. The Hotchkiss label on the front of the hull there. So I manoeuvre the sprues around. Really nicely done. Very restrained cast detail. You know, unfortunately, there are some knockout pin marks on the hull side, so we'll have to address those. Turret is an upper shell. Obviously one part there, really nicely cast. A couple of sprues of running gear. Pretty simple stuff. Duplicate sprues, tracks and wheels. And then the fourth sprue, which has got the tracks geared, and a couple of figures. You get a German and a French figure. Some German parts there for the cupola and the French conversion of the cupola. Really nicely done. And there's the German figure with some scaffolding underneath him, and then some French figure as well. Nice of Tamiya to include both versions of crew. And looking at the instructions, obviously you get the A version and B version. I always go through and just make sure, familiarise myself with it. I'm doing the B version, which is the German version. Looking at the kit, we'll go through obviously what changes are needed to make the kit into the German captured version. So choice of engine decks, bit of research there. You can get away with using either, which is good. German antenna mounted on the fender, and we'll address this later on in the build as well. They got it in the wrong spot. Good job, Tamiya. I only actually found one photo with the antenna mounted in that spot on the fender. Tamiya does give you a nice tread skid, some chain. Hate chain on the tank, but anyway. And then obviously the cupola. Germans modified the French cupola by taking the top off it, and German figure. So let's get started. So I always like to start getting all the major hull parts together. First step really is to not get rid of these knockout pin marks, which is kind of annoying. They are hidden once the tracks and wheels are on, but let's get rid of them anyway. So I give them a quick scrape with my knife blade, just really basic sort of rough scraping. And then just an offcut of sanding sponge. This is a quite coarse God hand sanding sponge. Just give it a quick sand as well. Really just sort of butchering it away to get rid of that knockout mark. And then I just give it a good slathering of liquid glue just to blend it in and blend the scratches away. This is really a simple way of doing it. If these were in a spot that wasn't quite as prominent, I'd probably be a little bit more careful. But look, it's good enough for government work. In true IKEA style, the hull gets put together from flat panels, which actually fit perfectly as you'd expect from Tamiya. So I just slot them together, slather it with a bit of glue. It's really simple. You know, I probably don't need to tell anyone how to glue the parts together of the hull, but they do glue together nice and square. Here's the front plate with a beautiful cast texture and the Hotchkiss maker's mark on the front. This just slots into the flat sides. Some gaps that will need filling. We'll address those when we get to the texture section later on in the video. A bit of glue. Don't know why I'm showing so much gluing action, but here we are. Rear plate, same deal. Glues on very positively. Some gaps there as well, which I'll need to address. We'll get to that later on. And that's it. That's our basic hull together. The final drive covers are actually part of the front casting, so we'll need to fill all those gaps as well. Just blend it all into one big solid casting. Let's get the turret together while we're gluing parts together. I always like to do the basic big parts, so the hull and turret first, and then work on the details later on. So a bit of glue, and away we go. Turret's a beautiful, bit of moulding from Tamiya, just two halves, upper and lower, that fit together perfectly. And there's just a cheek piece for the gun aperture. It gets glued on. So let's address some cast texture on the armour. French armour wasn't cast as poorly as Russian cast armour. So there is room for us to add some texture. There's a bunch of different ways. Tamiya putty, basic grey type, and Tamiya, thinned with Tamiya glue is an excellent way of doing it. That's my go-to way generally. You can also use Mr. Surfacer 500. That's really handy for filling gaps and for adding some extra cast texture as well. It's not solvent based, whereas the Tamiya putty and Tamiya glue is solvent based. And I just use a little metal tin and a scabby old brush, cheapy, that can be thrown away afterwards or used a couple of times. And in this case I'll use some Tamiya tape just to blank off some sections of the cast armour, just to add a bit of differentiation between all the armour panels. On the lower hull, obviously there's some cast and welded sections or bolted sections, so I do want to differentiate those. So a bit of Tamiya tape applied judiciously just to separate the armour panels for when we're adding the cast texture. You don't need to do this if you're careful with the brush, but chuck a bit of tape on, it takes 2 seconds and it looks good. So adding your cast texture is really just a matter of gooping out some putty. And look, everyone's done videos on these. I probably don't need to go into too much detail on how to do it. Goop out your putty, get some of your glue. You notice that glue is nasty. It's dark grey in colour. It's my go-to bottle of putty mixing glue, which I keep separate from my building glue. I know that sounds stupid, but keep them separate. So just mix it up till you got a relatively runny consistency and gloop it on. The side lifting eyes were actually integrally cast into the hull, so it's a good idea to blend these in with a lot of putty, because it actually is one part. And there's our hull side, just finishing off now. Just adding a bit of extra texture. Again, you don't need to go crazy like it's a Russian tank. These things were actually, they were made by craftsmen and they were beautifully made. We didn't have necessarily super rough texture at all. So we just get that tape off. Come on, it's fighting me. Yep, so peel the tape off. So we've just got 2 sections of armour there. And then we can move on to adding cast texture to the rear section. Again, just trying to differentiate it a little bit, because they would be made at separate times. So I add a slightly lighter texture to the rear armour. I find adding cast armour texture really a therapeutic process. It's not always necessary, but it is really good fun to do, and it certainly makes the model look good. You do start seeing pixies though, or in my case, little blue dolphins, after a while, so make sure you keep your room really ventilated well. And just go around the model at the end and just make sure you've got all your cast texture in all the right places you want it. Here, just off screen, there we go. Just adding it to the mating surfaces a little bit. And there's our hull all cast up. Now we can start adding some parts. So classic Tamiya style, some polycaps. They get trapped inside the final drives. And that's where our drive sprocket will go. Come on, Sam, keep it on screen. Yep, we've seen a bit of glue action, a bit of polycap work. It's always good fun. These are about the only polycaps that get used on the suspension, just in the drive sprocket area. So moving on to the suspension, we're confronted with the first of our German options, option B, which is using spoked or non-spoked idler wheels. The German option calls out for the spokes. Having looked at reference photos of H39s in German service, the Germans use spoked and non-spoked versions, so you can use either one. I'm going to go with the spoked versions because they look a bit cooler. Well, if a wheel can look cool. There's a ton of small parts in the suspension components. I just go through and clip them all off the sprues. You don't need me to show you footage of doing that. You know what that looks like. So let's just quickly jump ahead. And here's our suspension components together. There's 6 of them together. 4 of them are the same. 2 of them are the front suspension components, and they're separate, identifiable by these reinforcement panels that are welded on. You can see there's a front suspension panel there compared to one of the middle or rear ones. Just a bit of a call out. You can't glue them in the wrong spot because it's Tamiya, obviously, but I've just marked them left and right so I know which side they go on the hull. Then all the wheels and tracks, well, taken off the sprues and assembled where we can assemble them. I'm not going to show footage of me gluing it together, but we can jump ahead through the magic of editing. The suspension looks fantastic, it fits really perfectly. It's link and length tracks. I've just got a bit of tape holding it together while the glue dries at the bottom there so that I'm able to remove them for painting down the line. But yeah, Tamiya's done a ripper job with the suspension. Before we glue the hull parts together and start fitting some components to the hull, the instructions do call out for a couple of holes to be drilled. Don't forget, I usually do. Then you can quickly throw the upper and lower hull together, which is deeply satisfying the way that it fits. Perfect Tamiya fit, as you'd expect. Given the lower hull is 3 or 4 parts, it really does fit together so well. I always find fitting things like the driver's hatches and so on to the hull deeply satisfying. It just slots in perfectly, which is classic Tamiya, isn't it? I've rarely had a Tamiya kit not fit perfectly. I always like to personalise and add a little bit of battle damage to my kits. It just makes them look a little bit, I guess, more lived in and a bit not quite stock. So first step is to just remove any attachment points from the fenders from the other side. I just clip them off and give them a quick scrape with a knife blade just to remove any of the thicker components. So look, the fenders aren't too bad, but they could do with a little bit of thinning out. So I just use my Display battery powered drill, and we're going to remove a bunch of material from the underside of the fender. So I've removed the audio of this because the grinding noise is a bit like drilling teeth, so it's never fun. So the trick is to get the fender plastic as thin as you can, and by taking your time and being careful with it, you can actually get it super thin, which makes it really easy to bend. Then you want to go and remove the mounting points, or the bolts for the front fender extension, because if the fender was damaged, these would be removed. So drill out the bolt locations so it leaves the mounting holes, just with a 0.3 drill bit, I think that is, or 0.2 drill bit, something small. Once you've got the fender glued on, you can then just mangle with your thumb or with a pair of pliers or whatever you like, really. Just mangle the fender up. The very thin plastic bends and dents very easily, like the real fender, and I think it looks super realistic. If you don't want to thin the parts out, you can also just grab a pair of flat pliers like this, and I just bend and mangle and dent the fender up. So it's quite a simple thing to do, and I think it just adds a touch of personality and a touch of your own individuality, I guess, to the model, and makes a big difference, I think. And you quickly glue the part on, you can see it's just pulled away a little bit, which is kind of cool, like the driver's just backed into something, which happens. It's a really simple thing to do, but it makes a big difference, I reckon. And then just remember to remove one of the bolts and then drill out the bolt hole. It's these tiny little 1%ers. I know it seems like a really simple thing, but add the bolt missing, remove the bolt and drill the bolt hole. It does make a difference. And then with the other fender, I just bent that up, bent the fender extension and the fender itself, so it's just nice and mangled. And yeah, so each corner has got its own little personality and its own little bit of battle damage or driver damage. If you feel so inclined, there is plenty more you can do to this kit due to moulding limitations. Things like the exhaust guard is moulded quite thickly, and to me, it's classic for this. So it is a very easy fix. So I just grabbed some evergreen styrene card, not 60 thou. I just happen to have that bag handy. I use 10 thou because it's nice and thin and it is easily damageable. Damageable. Yeah, so I just measure the kit part because we're just replicating it, but in very thin plastic card. Evergreen is available everywhere. You probably got some in your stash. I wish it wouldn't slide around on the desk like that when I'm trying to cut it. But anyway. So yeah, just cut your part out, measure it, calipers or ruler or bits of string, whatever you use to measure stuff. Cut it out, and then I shaped it around a dental burr or a grinding bit, just something that's smaller than the diameter of the exhaust, so you can actually get that plastic bent around. It does have a bit of a memory. You could dunk it in hot water if you wanted to help sort of get it to the right shape. I just basically glued it straight onto the exhaust. Didn't bother filling in the void behind there because it's covered by the evergreen. Now there should be proper brackets and stuff, but it's all hidden behind there now. So and it makes a big difference. I think that the evergreen plastic just adds a little bit of lightness to the exhaust, and you can tint it up as much as you want. And then you can move on with adding the last pieces to the hull, things like the engine deck. You do get a choice of engine decks. The Germans ran both the French and the German version in the instructions, so you can use whichever one you like. And a couple of grab handles to add there as well. So now we circle back to the turret so we can finish off the gun parts. Lots of parts to the gun assembly, including a polycap. Boom! Magic of editing and the gun's built. It's a really nice little assembly. Here's me just fat fingering in the coaxial machine gun. Probably should have used tweezers there, but oh well. They're all the way over there somewhere. Oh, no, they're the tweezers. Should use these. So yeah, the gun has a little yoke assembly that allows it to traverse and elevate. Once it's installed on the turret, there's a small depression in the turret roof that captures the top of the gun mount, and then a nice little added turret ring assembly that secures the bottom of the gun. Very nicely done, Tamiya. And then we can move on to the last few turret parts, which is the cupola. The magic of editing will help us out here again. You don't need to watch me build it. So look, the Germans cracked the top off the cupola, the French cupola, like a boiled egg, and fitted some flat hatches, which enabled the crew commander to see out of the top of the vehicle much better than through the French cupola, which obviously limited vision. So very much common thing with captured French tanks. The Germans made this modification on all of their captured French tanks, the Chars and Renaults and so on. One thing worth addressing on the German version of the Hotchkiss is the antenna mount. The Germans mostly mounted on the right-hand side on a tripod sort of arrangement, as seen in this sort of close-up photo. So Tamiya mount the German antenna on the left-hand fender, which I've only found one photo of, so I think this is the more common mount, was on this right side. You can see on this vehicle that the Kubinka Tank Museum, you can see the remnant of the mount, that disc under the arrow on the fender. So it's quite a simple thing to add. I just punched out I think it's like an 8mm disc. I think it was 8mm or something like that anyway, using this giant, there we go, 8mm, giant punch set and a wooden base for the hammer because I couldn't find my hammer. There we go, hit it again, there we go. So just punch out a styrene disc for the base, which is pretty simple, and that'll sit on the fender. So I've just got to trim the edge off it because in that original photo you can see where it underlaps the fender side. So easy enough to do. Just cut a wedge off, glue it to the fender, and look, I'll jump ahead. So we can skip ahead to where I've finished the antenna mount. I used some an Aber turn brass barrel and just some strips of styrene to make that triangular tripod mount, and some lead wire and some Tichy Trains bolts. And we've got the antenna mount. In a future video we'll talk about scratch building parts. I just wanted to not dwell too long on that. Finally, well not finally, but the next step is to add a no-tech light. So this is a German blackout driving light. The kit doesn't come with it, so I just removed the rear vision mirror off the fender. That's the rear vision mirror there, and then glued that on. There should be wiring under there, but I'm just going to add a bit of mud, cover it up. Mud covers everything. And that's from T-Rex, beautiful 3D printed part. And finally, look at the turret. And the turret's a lovely part. The figure that comes with it is an interesting guy. The German one is just in the turret, sort of riding side saddle, looking forward. I replaced the head with a Hornet head, which has a German headset on it, which is a really nice looking head. The kit plastic head isn't bad to me. The figure's heads generally are pretty good, but the Hornet head's much better. Alright, we're coming to the end of the video now. The last thing we want to do is replace some of the bolts on the kit. So these bolts that hold the fender supports on and the pivoting point for the driver's visor are kind of poorly, not poorly moulded, but just, you know, plastic limitations. So I grabbed some resin conical head bolts for the driver's visor, and then some slotted hex nuts or castle nuts for the fenders. There's a whole raft of manufacturers make them. They're available everywhere. It's just a matter of cutting them off the little resin foot, bit of super glue or CA glue. I used some cheap Selly stuff, and just the conical bolt goes on the driver's visor pivot, both sides, makes a big difference. And then same with the castle nuts. So again, moulding limitations to me, I couldn't mould these as castle nuts, but make a difference, and they'll hold a wash really nicely as well. And one extra bit that needs a bit of attention is where that fender bracket is. There's a big gap there, so I filled that with a bit of Mr. Surfacer, and then on with the castle nut. And this is the very last little thing to do. So see, I've filled the gap, and then on with the castle nut, and we're done. So all that's left now is to have a quick look around the model. It's a beautiful kit from Tamiya. They've done an amazing job. So in the next video, I think we might get some paint on it. What do you think? German 3-colour camo? But first we've got to pull it apart. Thanks for sticking with us this far, and I'll see you in the next video.